Yes, it's that time yet again. From Software releases a game in which the discussion of difficulty in games gets cycled around once more. Originally, I tried to touch on this topic during the release of Sekiro and ultimately never finished the blog post, so I can express my thoughts here in video format in a much easier format for everyone to consume. The discussion usually has two sides, or three if you have no horse in this race. One side stands proud of their accomplishments, being able to beat the Souls game, with the mentality of, I struggled, so should you, honestly. Or, it was meant to be this way, and you just get good. Arguing that the integrity or vision of the game would be ruined if it was altered to be any easier than it is. Or, really, it's just difficult, brutally, if that. While the other side makes very valid criticism on what potentially could be an accessibility issue, or a light suggestion that honestly wouldn't harm the integrity of the game, nor take away from the achievements of those that conquered the challenge. Which is weird to me. Well, why do we even have this discourse? It has been a constant conversation point since probably Sekiro, and honestly before that even, that perhaps this design philosophy, the brutally hard experimental try and error combat, might need to be reevaluated. But before we do that, we should really take a look at From Software's past. This company has had a history of creating pretty deep, mechanically challenging games. We can go back for quite a while. I mean, starting at 1994, but more specifically, we could go back to 1998 with Tenchu Stealth Assassins, and then also follow up with my personal favorite, Armored Core. These games weren't ever for the faint of heart, but also came from an era where challenge was the norm. The idea of the water cooler conversations on how to figure out how Meryl's codec number for Konami's Metal Gear Solid, if you weren't clever enough to realize that they actually meant the game case, not the CD case item in the game. Oh god, and that was all from an era where you couldn't easily get information. You had to count on word of mouth generally is how it was spread, and that was sometimes the only avenue that we would have. Tenchu was a great series that you could really try almost anything, that experimental era, so long as you assassinate your targets, a la, Hitman series. We could still see plenty of Tenchu influences within Sekiro. So, as time went on, in this early age of memory cards and save files, we kind of changed the landscape of game design in general. The idea that the more hands on the game, it would be better, because, well, it's how you would make money. We no longer needed extreme difficulty to pull quarters out of people's pockets. You could sit right at home and get that same experience, which is still true today. Nobody would necessarily say no to getting more game sales. If you went to college for game design prior to 2015, you'd be hard-pressed to avoid the lessons of act like your player has never played a video game before and hold their hand through the levels, which is weird considering Demon Souls actually came out in 2009. Yeah, it's kind of strange. 2009 was interesting, and would you believe that back then, Demon Souls only sold 1 million copies by 2011. A slow start even in Japan, selling a little over 134,000 copies by year's end, and there wasn't a positive reception initially for the game at trade shows. We're still talking like it was seen as a success in the eyes of Atlas at the time, and especially Demon Souls putting up only 39,000 units sold within the first week, and hit number 2 on those sales charts on its opening week. A stark contrast to sales in today's market, though. If you want to look at it, Sekiro sold 2 million copies within 10 days and ended up hitting 5 million by year's end, which is impressive by today's standards. And if you want to go even further back to 2016, Dark Souls 3 ended up selling 3 million copies within a month, and then 10 million in 4 years' time. So these games do sell really well. And when Demon Souls came out westward, it was applauded for the very unique multiplayer component it featured, which was the community effort of solving the obscure game together. Right here we do have the trailer of the remake of Demon Souls, which is fantastic that now you have a modern console to play this on rather than being stuck on the PS3. It was the first time we could leave messages on the floor to either help or hinder players and see phantoms of other players attempting to run through the game. It was awarded multiple Game of the Year accolades from websites like GameSpot and RPG of the Year from IGN. Personally, I've always been of the mind to give the challenge as an option. Often I lean toward Doom 2016's Nightmare mode. That was actually a pretty decent mode as well, too, right? To add that additional challenge to your Doom experience even. Which you would either do before or after. I think you even had to beat the game, if I recall correctly, to even unlock Ultra Nightmare mode. And then also Dante Must Die mode in Devil May Cry, a series staple even, that if you get touched once, you are dead. That is it. It's game over. And you don't get items to replenish your health either. You have to go in there being as the best Devil May Cry player that you can. While these games aren't like the action RPG From Software has created, it's interesting to look at the sales numbers for, say, Doom 2016 by comparison. And Doom 2016, 1 year later, sold 2 million copies by 2017. Often I think, what's the harm for adding an easy mode so players can experience overcoming adversity in varying degrees of difficulty? Still, I fail to understand what the intended vision is meant to achieve by refusing to budge, but also I kind of admire that drive to create something very specific. In my Sekiro playthrough, I spent, darn near 2 hours trying to beat Gyobu, and in that playthrough, I just remember, which we have here on the side, that I wasn't thrilled when I beat Gyobu. I don't even remember being satisfied. Like, I just simply persevered and moved on to the next grueling test of skill, yet the challenge still drew me forward. Excuse me. Admittedly, I come from a Monster Hunter background, so these challenges or skill are satisfying for me as a player. But I can't rightfully share on the experience with Monster Hunter hopefuls if the difficulty, a set in stone one at that, deters them from playing altogether. Comparing sales of Monster Hunter series from around that same 2016 era, Monster Hunter, a series that is wildly popular in Japan and getting a big push westward with the release of World. In 2014, Monster Hunter 4 had 4.2 million copies sold by October 2015. Which is a pretty big deal. And then you also check out Monster Hunter XX Ultimate in 2017. There was 3 million copies sold by 2018, and then the Switch version ended up releasing after that, which bumped it up to 8.2 million copies sold across both the Switch and 3DS version of the game. Now, I bring up sales. You're probably wondering why I keep bringing up sales. What is the point of that, right? I bring up sales often because it's used as an argument as to how many people can actually experience Demon Souls, Dark Souls, Bloodborne, or even, now Elden Ring, the conversation focal point of this soapbox here, to its entirety. I've even personally used this argument myself that surely, if we made it easier, more people will buy into it. We're talking about a developer that has constantly received great commendations since Demon Souls in 2009. And even before that, a game at the forefront of conversation for the majority of the gaming community, both famously and infamously. So surely that draws attention from hopefuls that aren't in the series. They perhaps hope, if they're aware of the From Software pedigree, that this is the one they can get into or understand. But every time there's a hint of a group interested in the games and start commenting that they feel left out due to the difficulties, some folks in the community get a little gatekeepy or oddly protective of the difficulty of these games. It should be said, though, and I do want to make very clear, that the community does genuinely come together to help people beat these games. I even went back to stream Dark Souls early in my streaming career and had a blast with the viewers giving me help throughout my playthrough via backseat gaming and chat. And lots of kind folks are out there, and they should certainly get their just desserts. I'm sure they're still out there helping hopefuls conquer their demons. I see all the time folks chiming in on a stream to help people, and the effect word of mouth solution finding in the series is a fascinating case study in today's world of Discord. Something to look into there at that point, right? It's clear that the current difficulty of these games has no effect on stopping the ever-increasing sales of these series. The games focus on skill over handing victories simply for participating do pretty well. I remember getting frustrated playing through Mega Man X games, and or even I have a clip of that one pulled up right now of me just struggling through Mega Man 0 in a very recent time, 5 years ago. Wow. Mega Man X games, or even their harder counterparts, Mega Man 0, and still sticking with them because they were just cool. However, younger me then had the time to sit there and tinker with those games, and often I wasn't buying multiple games a year that demanded my attention. Thanks a lot, live service games. Thank you so much. It's difficult to find a true balance. A game that presents a solid challenge and still rewards you for your time. Gaming has always been weird about difficulty. Ninja Gaiden Black would give you a hard time in giving you Ninja Dog mode after dying a few times. So difficulty, it was a difficulty that was actually meant to insult you for even needing to use the mode in what was lauded as one of the most difficult games of its era. For me, it was a welcome add-on, as I could complete the game and still have the challenge and come back later after understanding what I had to do and what to expect. So I guess I have to ask again, should these games have varying degree of difficulty? Yeah, actually, I think they should, so long as it doesn't compromise the intent of the game's design. I think that is a very important aspect of when we're looking at the difficulty of a From Software game. But how can we realistically measure that on a sliding scale when we think about how these monsters and enemies are designed? In Doom or Halo, the higher the difficulty, the more aggressive the AI will become. In Monster Hunter, monsters have a specific behavioral pattern, and they'll stick right to that until it is swayed, depending upon the interaction from the player and various status effects. The numbers game in stats is essentially the difficulty slider, and while Monster Hunter and even the Souls-like games aren't holding your hand through their games, they want you to have a satisfying aha moment when you discover a game-winning strategy. Or perhaps you leave a bit and return after upgrading your gear and realize that you now have the tools to overcome your obstacle. All this long-winded discussion to say that the difficulty in a From Software game is certainly not for everyone. And not every game is built with everyone in mind. But that right there is the crux of the argument. It has been a strong point of argument for quite some time. Accessibility matters. No, I don't expect everyone to overcome a challenge. That's kind of unrealistic. But often these games that push skill as the exclusive way to win can create accessibility problems for players that simply do not have the luxury of utilizing the skill. These games are challenging in that they require precise timing, positioning, visual cues, sound cues, and things that perhaps a fully capable player might take these things for granted. At the end of the day, when it comes to difficulty in a From Software game, I think that there isn't harm in ensuring that everyone who does decide to attempt the challenge has a fair shake of achieving victory. And that fair shake could very easily be the accessibility implementations we saw in Last of Us 2, for example. Sure, it's a bit of extra work, and yes, absolutely, you could, in theory, apply the bumper bowling mechanics to the next time you go bowling and make that easier. At the end of the day, are you still going to get that perfect 300 game if you had the bumpers on the alley? But these accessibility options are certainly not built for everyone, but built for those who absolutely have the right to at least be a part of the conversation and what is constantly lauded as some of the best RPG titles out there. That's been my long overdue soapbox on difficulty in gaming. Let me know what you think. I'm definitely planning on playing through some Elden Ring. Will I end up beating it? Who knows? I mean, I still have a Sekiro playthrough I got to go through, but I'm looking forward to exploring the world, making new discoveries, and enjoying my time or pain in the world of Elden Ring. But what are your thoughts? I would love to hear that in the comments or even tweet it out as well. You can see me on @ZeroSyndicate or twitch.tv/ZeroSyndicate, where I will be playing Elden Ring and various other games as well. Do you think that the difficulty slider or any sort of additional difficulty options should be implemented to the game just at a base level? Or maybe we should reconsider and at least add accessibility options. Surely that is an easy, no-brainer compromise to make for a game like this that has received so many accolades. Let me know what you think. Until next time, though, this has been my Soapbox. I'm Alex Russ, aka Zero Syndicate. Later days.